Welcome back to Harmonic Analyzer. In this session, I want to review some of the preferences that make it easy to scan within the Harmonic Analyzer. Now, let's take a look at the Nasdaq 100. And the Harmonic Analyzer has the ability to scan for numerous ratio possibilities and just so many different pattern combinations. I'll show you that in a second. That it's important to be aware of just these filtering preferences before you even begin. So let's look at this Nasdaq 100 on a daily chart. And remember, this icon on the right, this is the Harmonic Analyzer icon. So click for Analyze Harmonics. We click there. That's going to bring us our dialog box for scanning. This is also available in the Tools section where you can select Harmonic Analyzer. Now that brings up our Nasdaq 100, and since this is a daily weekly chart, we want to scan possibilities going back the last few years. So let's scan from, say, current date, go back to 2012. Now typically this is going to enable us to see if there's larger patterns spanning, completing at this time, and give us kind of a viewpoint of what some of the longer term structures may be forming. At the same time, it's going to scan what we set it for. Now the defaults are set up for some basic purposes. If we go to the default setting, which is usually going to be the first one that comes up, this is the default. That's really going to set everything and will be the first preference that comes up. There will be pre-installed settings as well, and for end of day, daily, weekly users, especially the ones using the free version of the program, I would suggest just selecting the end of day or the daily setting here. Now this has specific preferences that we can quickly review on each. So the number of max matches, that means what are the total number of pattern matches? Certainly this isn't going to be 2,000, and you could limit this, really it could even just be, show me the top 15 or 20 matches, especially if I want to look at what's happened in the past. But that's, that's pretty reasonable. Show me the top 25 matches. Sometimes it's better to look for and study when you want to look at every possible match, but we're just looking for something that's coming together now. Now on the time scale, again for the end of day users, for the free version, we're looking at daily, weekly. If you have eSignal or the CSV import feature, you can get real-time intraday quotes for all markets, but the HA Pro will require an upgrade. Send us an email at Harmonic Trader if you have any questions. But again, let's keep on with the preferences. So we can scan for bullish, bearish. We can scan for match type. Now this is where probably the most preferences can be found. We can scan for individual ratios, selecting all or deselect all. We're really interested in the patterns right now. Another interesting area here, this preference setting, is ABCDs. So the ABCDs, we could scan for ABCDs included with the patterns, but there will be a lot of overlap, and I'll get into this in another session where I'd like to just scan for ABCDs on their own, but let's just look at the patterns themselves. So here are the primary patterns: Gartley, butterfly, bat, crab. These are the M and W shaped patterns. Now look at all these different ratios. Now what these mean is that these enable us to look for certain preferences and define exactly what kind of ratio alignments we want to look for. So in this case, if it's a Gartley, certainly we're going to keep the 618B point because that's mandatory. But we could filter out, say, a weak C point that's at a 382. Because a lot of times they don't yield very good structures within that pattern. So that's one tip. Sometimes I take that out. Sometimes I scan for all of it. But we can look for these four, or let's say we just want to look for one pattern. Let's say we just want to look for a bat pattern. Really easy, just to deselect all of those. And then when we go to save it and we hit OK, it's going to ask us to save the change filters. And we could call that, say, bat pattern or just bat. So, and then just save that. And then you'll just be scanning for the bat. But let's go back to all the patterns. Patterns, all patterns daily. Click on the edit. And let's get back here. So we're going to scan for these 4 patterns. Now let's go to the match width. Now this is set by default at 10 days. But I refer most people to the idea of having a minimum 30 bar pattern. That relates to normal distribution, law of probability. But for most cases, I feel confident that any pattern that is at least 30 bars or more is going to give us the best expectation for normal trading action. Now the maximum here, this is set at a 1,000. You could go to 2,000. That's just going to find you some really larger patterns, no matter what the time frame is. But typically, you're going to see your pattern matches somewhere between 30, 50 bars in the minimum, as much as maybe 800 or 1,000. At that point, you kick up to a higher time frame when you're above 800 bars. But you will include that, leave that open. This max PRZ spread, this is really more of a means to cut down on those PRZs that have very wide ranges. So this is kind of not so much of a relevant. I would just say keep it down around 10 or 11%. That's going to at least help you find most of the patterns that are not going to have obscure zones. So now we get to the PRZ. Now this is a fantastic filter because we can pinpoint and eliminate a lot of matches that aren't completing or have yet to complete, or just simply the structure did not completely form and realize the entire CD leg. And one of the easiest ways to do this is just to take out a couple of these numbers. So if we're dealing with crab, Gartley, butterfly, bat, we usually want to see at least one of the numbers be tested, 1 or 2. Let's do 2 of 3. So if we get 2 of 2 in the crab, that's a minimum 2, and then we get 2 or 3 out of the bat, butterfly, Gartley, then we know we have something. Now down here, this above PRZ, below PRZ, in PRZ, another very accurate filter. This is going to help us find those situations, say if we're looking at a bullish pattern and it is above the PRZ, that's going to tell us, those matches that are much closer to being realized than, say, something that has just simply not worked out. And I'll come back to this after we run the scan to show you an effective kind of last little filter to do. So then let's go to the advanced filter here. All of these are a little more advanced in terms of if we're looking for exact price bars. For example, if we're looking for, say, the last bar in the pattern, the maximum PRZ difference of 50%, what that is looking for is for very obscure volatile price action. I like to just keep it out at 50. These advanced factors are not as significant. It's been more experimental in terms of what we've done to try to find the best pattern matches. But the damping factor and the previous leg retracement threshold, they all deal with being able to filter out those extreme swings so that we find patterns that complete and form under normal conditions. I would leave these where they are at the default. Now the final one is the indicator files. As many people know, I love RSI, but we also have some ADX filters here. There's a lot of ADX traders that are incorporating ADX with harmonic patterns. I think that's great. And there's also a lot of people that respect moving averages, which again I think is a traditional measure. when we're looking at patterns. It gives us an idea of trend. And so it's fantastic to line up when patterns complete within these different types of moving averages, a smooth 50, a smooth 200 versus exponential 50 or exponential 20. And so we could actually include these and say, all right, I only want those patterns that are developing close to a moving average. I'll leave that for you to experiment later. But the the PRZ here, if I was going to set that up, this is fantastic because I can set this, say, from 0 to 40, or tell me about a bearish pattern that's completing, okay, that has its PRZ and its price action that's completing at the same time we're registering into one of these extremes. So I leave that to you to play as well, play with later. Extremely helpful and effective on filtering even more precisely. So let's remove these just for now, and let's look at the general match. Okay, we won't save the filters for, well, I'll save the filters. So, and that'll bring it up. So we just hit save. That gives us that's a way to save it. You could rename it and give it a custom name. Again, leave that to you to play with. So let's perform the analysis, and we come up with these matches. Now remember, we were only coming up with those matches that fit either 2 of 3 or 1 of 2, 3 of 3. So these numbers must have hit to be considered a valid match. That's something that would be a possible trade. So let's just look at the last one here. Let's see what that came up with. So here's a Gartley back from last year. That's pretty good right there. And that's exactly why these filters are so effective. I mean, that gave you just a beautiful pattern, beautiful alignment of numbers with everything there. It's a Gartley. And remember what I was saying about the terminal bar +1, where we assess this, that once we've tested all of those numbers, this is the starting point for execution. But again, we're looking for the patterns to give us that zone. Really nice pattern, really nice match, and a quick way to find a fantastic setup. So let's look at the first one actually. So that was the last one that was generated. Now let's go to the first one and let's see what that says. All right, something that just completed. Now this is a tough one, a really difficult one, because look, we have a beautiful Gartley pattern, but we have some very dramatic, extreme, volatile action. Now I cover this on my YouTube channel of how to deal with these type of extreme price action swings. Now clearly this is a warning sign as this gap down several percent, 3-4% one day, and then followed by another down day. So if that's terminal bar, that's terminal bar +1. We're not even looking for execution until that +1 bar and then gets a reaction. Very difficult pattern because it did exceed the stop loss, but from a general sense, what I'm trying to emphasize here is Harmonic Analyzer's ability to find matches that get you at least in the ballpark area to understand, even in the most difficult of environments, what might be possible based on the structural signals. So take a look at that. In some upcoming videos, we'll do some more scanning with preferences with Harmonic Analyzer. Take a look at some of the finer features. If you have any questions, please contact us at ha_support@harmonictrader.com. And again, Harmonic Analyzer End of Day is a free program available at harmonicanalyzer.com. I'm Scott Carney. Thanks for your time.